One evening, I stepped out onto the balcony to talk to Raghav. The air was sharp with the scent of jasmine and dust. We joked about the time he accidentally wore mismatched boots during training. He laughed, deep and warm. "I miss you," I said. "I miss your voice." "And your skin," he whispered. I flushed, instinctively glancing over my shoulder, though I thought I was alone. I didn't realize Vikram was sitting in the study beside the balcony with the window open. He heard every word. The next morning, something shifted, subtly, but I noticed. At breakfast, Vikram looked at me longer than usual, not staring, just holding. I passed him the sugar bowl, and his fingers grazed mine. Maybe it was accidental, but the pause lasted a breath too long. "You and Raghav speak often?" he asked, stirring his tea. "Every night, if possible," I said, smiling softly. He nodded. "That's good. These long separations, they can be difficult." There was nothing strange in his words, yet they lingered. Over the next week, his presence grew more attentive. He started joining me for evening tea. He asked about my hobbies, my views on literature, my childhood memories. Conversations deepened, and I found myself opening up more than I expected. Maybe it was the way he listened, fully, without screens or ticking clocks. One afternoon, we discussed a poem by Tagore. He read it aloud in his rich baritone, and something about the cadence, the longing in the words, made the air feel strangely electric. I brushed it off. I was just starved for company. Anyone would seem intriguing in that stillness. But then came the night I saw him standing at the hallway's end, watching me. I was in my nightgown, brushing my hair, unaware he'd stepped out of his room. When our eyes met, he didn't look away immediately. Only when I turned, heart pounding, into my room. That night, I couldn't sleep. There's a moment, when something forbidden is still unreal, when you convince yourself it's in your head. You want to believe it's nothing, because anything else would demand action. Hard, irreversible action. I didn't tell Raghav. I didn't tell anyone. I convinced myself it was harmless. A look. A moment. Meaningless. But it wasn't meaningless. And deep down, I knew the house no longer belonged only to me and Raghav's absence. Something unnamed had crept in. Watching. Listening. Morning came without a word. When I opened my eyes, the bed beside me was empty. The sheet barely creased. I sat up slowly, the weight of silence pressing on my chest. The fan groaned overhead, shadows dragging across the floor. I didn't mention anything when I passed Vikram at breakfast. Neither did he. Raghav had texted, "Morning. Meeting till 4. I replied with a thumbs up I didn't mean. The hour stretched. I read half a novel without absorbing a word. At lunch, Vikram said, "The electrician is coming. By 4. I'll handle it." I nodded, grateful for the distance. I never thought I'd be someone who would slip out of control. My life had always been calm and predictable. I spent 67 years living with care and caution, and I liked it that way. As a retired schoolteacher, my days were filled with order, peace, and the comfort of routine. Everything felt steady, until the day it all shifted. It began quietly, with a simple hello from the new neighbor. His name was Richard. He had just moved in next door. He looked to be about 45, definitely younger than me. At first, I didn't think much of it. I certainly didn't expect anything unusual from a man that age. But there was something about him, his calmness, his quiet confidence, that stood out. He wasn't anything like my late husband, and maybe that's what caught my attention. I'd always believed that meaningful connection was rare and worth noticing when it appeared. So when he stopped by one afternoon offering herbs from his garden, I didn't hesitate to chat. It felt harmless at first. Just two neighbors talking. We spoke about plants, books, and the slow rhythm of life in our quiet town. But the more we talked, the more I found myself drawn to him. What began as friendly conversation grew into something deeper, more complicated than I expected. As time went on, something inside me began to shift. I started looking forward to seeing Richard in a way I hadn't expected. Every glance, every smile stirred something in me, something I hadn't felt in years. I tried to tell myself it was just the excitement of meeting someone new, of forming a fresh friendship. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. One day, he invited me over for tea. Nothing fancy, just a quiet visit between neighbors. Still, the moment I stepped into his home, I felt something electric in the air. He was welcoming and respectful, but there was something in the way he looked at me, an intensity one hadn't been seen within a long time. We talked for hours, sharing small stories, personal moments, even silences. And somehow, those simple conversations made me feel alive again. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Our talks became more frequent, and I started to rely on them. It wasn't just about having company anymore, it was about the bond we were forming. Late into the evenings, we'd talk about everything from our childhoods to the things we regretted most in life. Every conversation peeled back another layer of myself, and it felt both terrifying and thrilling to be so open. Then one afternoon, he asked me to take a walk with him in the park. A simple thing, really, just two neighbors walking. But the air between us felt charged. As we walked side by side, his hand brushed against mine. I felt my heart race. My body responded before my mind could catch up. For so long, I'd kept my feelings and desires in check. I lived with discipline, with restraint. But in that moment, I let it go. The pull between us was real, and it was getting harder to ignore. He left, and I was alone again, only now, with the weight of choices I couldn't undo. I had believed I could manage it, that I could let myself feel just enough without letting it go too far. But I was wrong. In the end, it wasn't the world or fate that broke me. It was my own emotions, my own quiet longing, that undid everything I had tried to protect. Richard was gone, and I was left to face the silence he left behind. I learned then that no matter how carefully we try to hold our lives together, some things will still slip away. And when they do, all we can do is face what's left and keep going. I had lost something I could never get back. But I would always remember the truth that day taught me. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who took the time to listen to or read this story. Sharing something so personal, something that touches on vulnerability, desire, regret, and reflection, is never easy. But it's in these honest moments that we often find connection, healing, and understanding. Thank you for being open to this journey, for not judging, and for allowing space for stories like this to be told. May we all learn to honor both our strength and our fragility as we move through life. Disclaimer. This story is a work of creative nonfiction and is intended for emotional reflection and storytelling purposes only. While inspired by real-life themes and human experiences, names, details, and events have been altered or fictionalized to protect privacy and maintain narrative integrity. The story does not intend to promote or justify infidelity but to explore the emotional complexities behind human relationships. Listener or reader discretion is advised.